I'm sitting here in this sterile hospital waiting room, hands clenched, trying to keep it together. My son, Mark, was just rushed in. Paramedics scrambling, the doctors moving like they've done this 1,000 times. But I can't shake the panic. I have to stay calm for him, but it's hard. I keep thinking about why we're here. Why Mark is lying in an ER bed, injured. Why Victoria couldn't keep her promise to pick him up today. It was supposed to be her day, yet once again she forgot. I called her when I got the news. No answer. Again. Busy. I'll call you back later. That's all I got. My son is in danger and she's busy? I can feel my frustration bubbling up. I try her number again, hoping for something. Anything. Silence. Her silence. I can't stand it. She should be here, I mutter to myself. She should be here for him. Chris and Judy, my 2 older kids, rush in. They don't say much, but I can see it on their faces. The fear, the confusion. Judy clutches Chris's arm like she's holding onto something solid. Dad, is he okay? Chris asks. His voice wavers despite his effort to keep it steady. I don't know, I say. They're still working on him. They're taking him into surgery. My voice cracks. Why didn't she pick him up? She promised. They both look at my phone, waiting for some sign that their mother will show up. Did you call her? Chris asks, his face tight with frustration. I've been calling her for over an hour. I glance down at the screen, hoping for anything. I don't know where she is. I walk out into the hallway, trying to collect myself. The silence weighs on me, suffocating. I dial her number again, one last time, my finger trembling as I press the screen. The phone rings, 1, 2, 3 times. Then the same message. Busy, I'll call you back later. My fist clenches. Later? I want to scream. I turn to see the doctor approaching. He's serious but calm. Mr. Edwards? I nod, trying to steady myself. Mark's injuries are significant. We need to get him into surgery immediately. The words hit like a punch to the gut. He's lucky he wasn't hit worse. But we need to act fast. I exhale, trying to swallow the fear. Is he going to be okay? It's critical, but he's young, and we're doing everything we can. He'll need the surgery. But if it goes well, he should pull through. I nod, wiping a tear from my eye. Thank you. The doctor leaves and I sit back down. I can't stop looking at the door to the operating room. My thoughts keep racing, and one keeps coming back. Victoria. A year ago, things were different. Our family was close, happy. But then, everything changed, and I couldn't put my finger on exactly when it all started. It was Victoria. It always came back to her. When she was diagnosed with cancer, I didn't hesitate. I had to be her strength, no matter what. I didn't think about myself. It was all about getting her through the treatments, the surgeries, the hospital visits. For months, I kept things together. I took care of everything, the kids, the house, the meals. She was too weak to even get out of bed some days. Her hair fell out. She was pale, fragile. I kept telling myself I was doing the right thing, being there for her. I'm here for you, I'd say, holding her hand during treatments. We're going to get through this together. But I wasn't doing okay. I was drained. The emotional toll of watching the woman I loved, vibrant, confident, wither away was killing me. I didn't have time to think about myself. There was no space for it. I didn't take care of my health, my career, anything. My weight crept up. I ate on the go, barely slept. It was all for her. She needed me. The kids needed me. She needs me, I'd tell myself when I was too tired to keep going. The first few months were a blur of hospital visits, chemotherapy, endless uncertainty. But I was there. I held everything together. I didn't show frustration, not once, but it was wearing me down. I wasn't the same person anymore. I hadn't realized just how much until things started to shift. And then after months of worry, the doctor said what I'd been waiting to hear. Remission. I couldn't believe it at first. Relief washed over me. For a moment, I thought we could go back to how things were before. But it wasn't the same for Victoria. The cancer was gone, but she wasn't the same. She was weak, out of shape. No matter how much I told her she was beautiful, she struggled with the changes. She was different, and so was I. Everything changed when Millie and Clark moved in next door. They were younger, full of energy, and immediately caught Victoria's attention. Millie especially stood out. She was fit, confident, radiant. At first, Victoria admired her, but it didn't take long before I saw the envy creeping in. I watched as she started focusing more and more on her appearance. The mirror, which used to be just a quick check, became an obsession. She began buying tighter clothes that flaunted her new figure, and waking up early to go to the gym. Millie invited her to join once, and that was all it took. From that moment on, Victoria was hooked. The transformation was quick. She shed weight, toned her body, and with it came attention. Not just from Millie, but from other people too. Men at the gym would smile at her, glance her way, linger a little too long. Victoria started smiling back. At first I was happy for her. She seemed so energized, so confident, but then it was like she was slipping away from me. It wasn't about getting healthier anymore. It was about something else. She was changing, and I felt like I didn't even recognize her anymore. One night, as she was heading out again, I tried to say something. "Hey, what if we went to the gym together sometime?" She paused, her phone in her hand, and looked at me for a moment. "That's sweet, but I really like doing it on my own. It's my space, you know?" I nodded, feeling the sting but trying to hide it. "Sure. Just thought it could be nice, us, together." She didn't seem to care, just shrugged it off. Maybe another time, but I knew that time would never come. She wasn't interested. Her gym sessions became longer, her clothes bolder. She'd skip dinner to work out or scroll through pictures of herself on her phone. She would talk about her fitness milestones, her body transformation, but I didn't feel like I was part of her life anymore. One evening, she came home late again after yet another dinner with the neighbors. I couldn't stay silent any longer. "We need to talk." She barely glanced up, her voice tired. "Can it wait?" "I'm really tired." "No," I said, my voice firmer now. "I feel like I'm losing you." She sighed, setting her purse down. "I'm finally feeling good about myself, Alex. Why can't you just support that?" "I do." But it wasn't enough. "But I miss my wife. I miss us." She stared at me for a long moment, her face unreadable. "I'm still here." But she wasn't, not really. Not the way she used to be. And we both knew it. The venue was alive with energy. Soft lights, laughter, the clinking of glasses, and music that shifted between upbeat and sensual. It was Victoria's 40th birthday. She looked stunning in that tight red dress, the kind that made her the center of attention. Guests surrounded her, offering congratulations, toasts, their admiration apparent. I watched from a distance, at first thinking it was all innocent, but then a younger man, charming, confident, pulled her onto the dance floor. She didn't resist. As the song changed to something slower, the space between them seemed to vanish. His hands were all over her, more than they should have been. She laughed, her head thrown back, letting him hold her in a way she hadn't let me in months. I could hear people whispering. "Isn't that her husband over there?" Someone said, eyes on me. I turned my gaze away, trying to ignore it, but I couldn't. I couldn't escape the growing knot in my stomach. That night, when we got home, the silence between us was thick, suffocating. She stood in front of the mirror, removing her earrings, not even looking at me. "You enjoyed yourself tonight," I said quietly. She didn't meet my eyes. "It was my birthday. I deserved to have fun." "Fun?" I echoed, my voice strained. "That's what that was? It was just a dance." "That wasn't just a dance, Victoria. His hands were all over you. Everyone saw it." She sighed heavily, her back to me. "You're overreacting. And you're pretending it meant nothing." The night ended without a word, without a touch. The next night was the same, and the night after that. Weeks passed and nothing changed. No intimacy, no affection. But she kept dressing up, hitting the gym, spending more time with the neighbors. She'd come home later and later, as though she had somewhere else to be. What hurt more than the absence of us in bed was the absence of her as a mother. I was driving to a meeting when I saw Mark walking alone down the road. "Mark, what are you doing? This road is dangerous," I shouted, pulling over. He looked up, his voice quiet. "I waited, but Mom never came." I was furious. That evening, I stormed into the kitchen where Victoria was scrolling on her phone, completely unbothered. "He was walking home, alone, next to a goddamn highway." My voice was loud, sharp. She didn't flinch. "I got caught up at work. It won't happen again." But it did. And it wasn't the first time. I was home when the call came, just past 6. A car accident, multiple injuries. A boy walking alone along a dangerous stretch of road. The name was Mark. The age matched. His backpack matched. The school ID confirmed it. I didn't hesitate. I drove to the hospital on autopilot, my mind numb. On the way, I kept calling Victoria, again and again and again, straight to voicemail every single time. I didn't even feel the panic anymore. It had turned into something colder, heavier. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. All I could do was wait. Hours passed. Each minute felt like a lifetime. Then finally, they opened the door. A doctor walked in, mid-40s, wearing a white coat, his tired eyes telling a story of its own. He sat beside me, the way a man who had just delivered a piece of news he didn't want to share would. The surgery went well. Your son is stable for now. I exhaled, a breath I didn't realize I was holding. Thank you, I whispered. But he didn't leave. He shifted in his seat, cleared his throat. There's one more thing, he said. We need a close relative to provide something essential, preferably a parent. Of course, I said immediately, standing up. Take whatever you need. He nodded. We just need to run a few checks before we proceed. The tests were quick. A swab, a few questions, silent nods from the nurse. But I was still there, still frozen, waiting for something to change. 20 minutes passed. The door opened again, and the doctor stepped inside. But this time there was something different in his expression. He sat down again, slower than before. Mr. Edwards, he began, his voice gentle but firm. We ran compatibility tests, and there's something you need to know. I looked up. Something in his face told me this wasn't good news. Medically speaking, you're not a viable match. Biologically, you're not Mark's father. The room tilted. No, not the room. My chest, my breath, my world. I blinked, then blinked again, trying to make sense of what he was saying, but the words didn't come. That's not possible, I finally managed, my voice low, hollow. There must be a mistake. We triple-checked, I'm sorry. My eyes drifted past the doctor, out into the hallway. Someone walked by holding a clipboard. Someone laughed softly at a nurse's station. Somewhere, a monitor beeped steadily in the background. But all I could think about was the fact that Mark, my son, was lying in a bed just behind that wall. And yet, he wasn't my son, but he was. Of course he was. I remembered his first breath, the tiny, wrinkled fingers clinging to mine, the way he squealed and clapped the first time he saw a puppy, the time he fell off his bike and didn't cry until he saw me running toward him, the drawings, the bedtime hugs, the whispered, I love you, Daddy. My throat closed. Can I still help him? I asked quietly, almost afraid of the answer. We've already found another family member, the doctor said, his voice soft. He'll be okay. I nodded slowly, feeling something heavy settle into my chest. My shoulders slumped. My hands shook. He's mine, I said, barely above a whisper. No matter what you say, he's mine. The doctor nodded quietly, showing a kind of respect I didn't expect. He stood and walked away. I stayed seated, eyes unfocused, my mind somewhere far beyond the hospital walls, trying to grasp a truth that didn't seem real. I stood motionless in front of the closed door. I entered as a father, but when I left, something inside me was broken. My chest felt tight, like someone had dropped a boulder on it. I walked slowly down the corridor to where Chris and Judy were waiting. Judy stood up as soon as she saw me. Dad, is he okay? I nodded, though it took effort. Yeah, they said he's stable. Surgery's over. Chris let out a breath of relief and sank back into his chair. They said they needed a family match, I continued, my voice softer than usual, almost cold. I wasn't compatible. Judy frowned. What do you mean? I sat beside her, rubbing my hands together, trying to steady myself. They ran the tests. Apparently I'm not a match for Mark. There was a long silence. Wait, Chris said, not a match? Like, not close enough? I shook my head. Judy stared at me, struggling to understand. You're not... No, I whispered. Not biologically, not in the way that counts. Judy covered her mouth, her eyes wide. Chris just blinked, his jaw tight. You want me to step in? Chris asked after a moment. I looked at him, exhausted. His question felt distant, but I nodded. If you're up for it. Chris didn't hesitate. Of course. He stood and followed the nurse who had been waiting. Judy didn't move. She was quiet, clutching Mark's phone. Then her voice cracked the silence. Does Mom know? I exhaled slowly, bitterly. No, she hasn't answered any of my calls. Judy looked at Mark's phone, her expression turning sharp. Wait, remember when she forgot Mark at soccer practice? I set up that Find My Thing on his phone. It's still active. I blinked. You can see where she is? If she didn't turn off location sharing. She tapped the phone, and after a moment, her face hardened. She didn't turn it off. She held the phone up. A blinking dot pulsed on the screen. She's not at work. My stomach sank. Where is she? She's at a motel. I leaned in, reading the screen. Motel 8, highway exit 14. The silence between us shifted. It was heavy now, thick with realization. Call the front desk, I said, my voice steady. Judy did as I asked. She spoke quickly, her voice calm, then turned back to me. Room's under the name D. Mercer. I clenched my jaw. Dylan. I took my phone out, dialing. 1 ring, 2, 3. Then it clicked. Dylan Mercer, came a casual male voice. I didn't answer right away. I just breathed into the silence. Who is this? Dylan asked. Put her on the phone, I said, flat and cold. There was a pause, a shuffle, then a tense voice. I think you've got the wrong... I said put her on. Dylan's tone cracked, the realization hitting him. Look, she's not here, okay? I don't know what you think. Put her on. A muffled whisper, then Victoria's voice, shaky, hesitant. Hello? I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. Victoria, Mark was in an accident. He had surgery. Silence, the kind that screamed louder than words. Where are you? More silence. That's what I thought. I ended the call, no words left to say. The fluorescent lights hadn't changed. The chairs were still cold. The hallway just as sterile. But something inside me had shifted. I sat motionless, my hands clasped, my eyes empty, staring at nothing. Then I heard the footsteps. Click, click, click. I turned my head toward the entrance. And there she was, Victoria, breathless, her hair windblown but her makeup still intact, strutted into the waiting area, wearing heels too high and a coat too short. She looked around, spotted me, and hurried over. Alex, she gasped. I came as soon as... I stood slowly, calmly, like the tide rising. Don't, I said. Don't even open your mouth. She froze in place, her eyes scanning my face, her expression shifting to something I couldn't read. I stepped closer, my voice sharp and low, a fire just beneath the surface. You smell like motel sheets and someone else's sweat. Her eyes widened, her mouth opened. She was going to deny it, explain, beg, but nothing came out. I didn't flinch. I didn't raise my voice. I just let it sit there. Mark made it through. Surgery's over. He's going to be fine. She exhaled, a whisper of relief escaping her lips, but it was crushed almost immediately. They needed a close relative for a match. She blinked. You mean they needed... Yeah, a parent. I paused, the silence between us sharp as glass. Only I wasn't enough. Her breath caught. She looked around, searching, as if someone would come to save her, like she could run. I know, Victoria, I said, my voice suddenly cold. I know he's not mine. Tears welled up in her eyes. Alex, please, let me explain. Save it, really. It gets better. I leaned in just slightly, because I'm going to test the other two as well. Her knees buckled. For a moment, she swayed. No. Then she collapsed. Her body hit the floor with a soft thud. The nurse screamed. People rushed to help. Someone shouted for assistance, but I didn't move. I just stood there, staring down at her, like she was a stranger, like she had never belonged there at all. The soft beeping of monitors filled the room. Mark lay awake, his eyes fixed on the ceiling, jaw clenched. Silent, still. The door creaked open. Victoria stepped in slowly, cautiously, like the space around him was sacred ground. Her face was pale, makeup smudged, eyes rimmed red from nights without sleep. She held a cup of lukewarm chamomile tea in trembling hands. Hi, sweetheart. Her voice cracked on the first word. I brought you tea. You always like chamomile. Mark turned his head toward her. His eyes were cold. You can go. She froze. Mark, I said go. Please, I know you're angry, but get out. The words were calm even, but they hit harder than a scream. She placed the cup on the bedside table with shaking hands, like laying down something precious. Then she turned and left the room without looking back. Victoria sat outside his room, unmoving. Same chair, same stare. Sometimes with a coffee, sometimes just empty hands clenched tight in her lap. She didn't sleep. She barely ate. Every morning she asked the nurse, "Can I see him today?" And every day the answer was the same. He still doesn't want to see you. Sometimes Mark yelled at himself through the closed door. Tell her to leave. She didn't leave. Until one morning, she did. Rain fell in a soft drizzle. Victoria stood on the porch, soaked, her coat sticking to her skin, mascara smudged from tears and weather. She tried the key. It didn't turn. Again. Harder. Still nothing. She rang the bell. Once. Twice. Finally, the door opened. I stood in the doorway holding a bag of groceries. I didn't say anything at first, just looked at her like she was something far away, like a memory I no longer wanted to carry. You changed the locks? I did. My voice was steady, cold. You don't live here anymore. Alex, the test came back. I cut her off. Chris isn't mine either. She covered her mouth, staggering back a step. Her whole body trembled. So I guess, I said, voice quieter now, you were only faithful to our firstborn. 1 out of 3, that's quite a ratio. Her knees almost gave out. She gripped the railing for support. I didn't plan any of this, she whispered. I never meant to hurt you. You didn't hurt me. I stared at her. You destroyed us. I turned and walked inside, closing the door without slamming it. Just ended it. Victoria stood there in the rain, motionless, then slowly her fists hit the door. Alex, please, please don't do this. This is still my home, she sobbed, pounding harder. I made mistakes, I know, but I'm still their mother. Let me in. No answer, only the sound of rain and the sound of her braking. A few days later, I heard tires crunching on gravel. A black car pulled up and out stepped Dakota, tall, proud, furious, dragging a suitcase behind her like it was a weapon. She didn't say a word, just marched up the walkway and stopped at the foot of the porch, arms crossed tight. We need to talk, she said. I didn't flinch. I don't think we do. She's my daughter, Alex. Yeah, I noticed, she exhaled sharply, nostrils flaring. She made a mistake. No, I replied flatly. She made a lifestyle. You don't get to erase 20 years of marriage over a few slips. People cheat, Alex. It's human. It's messy. But you have children together. You have history. And now we have DNA results, I shot back. Do you want to see them? Dakota stiffened. She's not the only one to blame. You worked too much. You let yourself go. You left her alone emotionally long before she turned to someone else. I stepped off the porch, getting in her face. Say whatever you want about me, but I was here. Every morning, every night, I picked up the pieces she dropped. I kissed bruised knees, packed lunches, remembered school pickups, unlike your daughter. Her voice cracked. She's not well, Alex. You know she had a hard time after her illness. You don't want to see her sick again, do you? I stared at her. If she gets sick again, it won't be an accident. It'll be justice. Her face twisted with rage. She raised her hand, not high, not fast, but enough to signal something. I didn't move. Then suddenly, Mark's voice cut through the tension. Don't. We both turned. Mark was standing near the gate, backpack slung over one shoulder, pale but standing strong. You don't get to hit him. Dakota froze. Mark walked up slowly, stopping beside me. You don't get to defend her either, he said, staring his grandmother in the eye. The silence between them wasn't empty. It was heavy, a verdict. Dakota looked between us, and for the first time she had nothing to say. I placed a gentle hand on Mark's back. We turned, walked into the house, and closed the door behind us. But Dakota followed us. You don't get to tell me to leave, she snapped. This house still belongs to my daughter and her husband. You're not divorced. I didn't flinch. Not yet. But the paperwork's filed. She'll be getting the notice any day now. Dakota's lip curled in disgust. You think that makes you the king of this castle? She raised her phone and started tapping. We'll see what Victoria has to say about that. She pressed call and walked into the kitchen as the phone rang. Sweetheart, she cooed. When the call connected, he thinks he can throw me out. You need to come home right now. He doesn't have the right. You two are still married, and this is still your house. I stood up and walked to the window. 10 minutes later, headlights cut across the driveway. The front door opened. Victoria stepped inside slowly, her clothes wrinkled, her face pale and raw from crying. Her eyes darted around nervously. Alex, she said, her voice trembling. Can we talk? Before I could answer, another voice came from the staircase. No, we can't talk. Mark was walking down slowly, holding a few sheets of paper and his phone. Victoria turned toward him, startled. Mark! Don't. His voice was cold. I've already filed a restraining order against you. The room went still. What? You're not allowed near me anymore. Not at school, not in this house, not at the hospital. I've already called the police. Victoria blinked, like someone trying to wake from a nightmare. You can't be serious. Mark handed me the documents and held up his phone. They're on their way. Dakota rushed toward Mark. You can't do this to your mother. She did it to herself, he said, unblinking. Victoria dropped to her knees. Please, she whispered. I know I messed up. I know I did, but I'm still your mother. You're my baby. Please. She crawled forward, reaching for him. Mark, please, don't let them take me away. But he backed up slowly without a word. Then a knock. 2 police officers stepped inside, calm but firm. Ma'am, one said to Victoria, we need you to leave the property immediately. There's a temporary protection order in place. You'll have to settle this through the court. No, please, she cried, gripping the door frame. I just need to hold my son, just once. Please. Ma'am, step outside, the officer repeated more firmly. Dakota shouted at the officers. This is absurd. She's his mother. You can't. The second officer turned to her. You too, ma'am. You're not a resident of this property. You'll need to leave. Victoria sobbed uncontrollably as the officers gently escorted her and Dakota to the door. Alex, please, she screamed through tears. Don't let them do this. Don't let him hate me forever. I stood at the top of the stairs beside Mark. I didn't say a word. I just watched until the door closed and silence reclaimed the house. The sun was low, casting long shadows. I stood in the front yard, watering the hedges, not because they needed it, but because it gave my hands something to do. A car pulled up. Familiar. Clark stepped out slowly, wearing jeans and a sweatshirt, his shoulders heavier than usual. He walked up like he was approaching a grave. I saw him. Didn't wave. Didn't speak. Clark stopped a few feet away. Hey! I turned off the hose. Let the silence settle. You got a minute? Clark asked. I shrugged. Guess so. He shifted awkwardly, then looked me in the eye. I'm leaving her, he said. Millie, I filed this morning. I raised an eyebrow, but didn't respond. I found out last night she's been sleeping with her yoga instructor and the guy from the bakery and God knows who else. I think the list's longer than I want to admit. He gave a short, bitter laugh. Guess Victoria wasn't the only one good at pretending. I stayed silent, jaw tight. She encouraged it, Clark added. All of it. She told Victoria she deserved more, that she should start living a little, that you were dragging her down. His voice tightened. I didn't know how far it had gone until now, and I'm sorry, Alex. I'm sorry we ever moved into this neighborhood. I think we broke something just by being here. I looked at him, no anger on my face, just the calm of someone who had already given all he could. You didn't break anything, I said. My wife did that a long time ago, long before you ever unpacked a box. Clark nodded slowly, eyes on the ground. No defense left. Anyway, he muttered, backing away. Just wanted you to hear it from me, and not the neighborhood gossip chain. He turned to leave. Clark. He paused and looked back. You're not the worst thing that happened here. Clark didn't smile, but something in his posture softened. Then he walked to his car and drove away. And now, this day had come. Muted light spilled through the tall courtroom windows. The room was quiet, sterile, the soft shuffle of papers and murmurs of lawyers the only sound. I sat on the right, composed, dressed in a dark suit. My expression was calm but distant, the calm of a man who had nothing left to fight for, and nothing left to lose. Victoria sat on the left, barely recognizable. Her once glamorous appearance was gone. No makeup, plain clothes. Her hair, once perfectly styled, was pulled back into a modest bun. She looked smaller, like life had shrunk her into herself. The judge reviewed the papers in silence. The attorneys had already spoken. There was no drama in the legal facts, no assets contested, no custody battles, because Victoria had signed everything away. I glanced at her once, briefly. She didn't look back. When asked if she had any final statement, she stood slowly, gripping the table for balance. Her voice trembled, but it carried through the room. I had everything, she said. A husband who loved me, children who trusted me, a home, a life. She swallowed, eyes brimming but refusing to cry. And I threw it away. All of it, for nothing, for emptiness. She turned slightly toward me. I don't expect forgiveness, I don't even deserve it. But I am sorry, and I will carry that until the end of my life. The judge finalized the decree with a nod and a firm stamp. It was over. But then, as the room began to clear, something shifted in Victoria. Her eyes flashed, a surge of emotion overtaking her. She stepped forward, her hand reaching out as if to grab me. You don't understand, Alex. You can't do this to me, she yelled, voice rising. I was your wife. I gave you everything. I froze. The tension in the air thickened. I didn't flinch, just stood there as she stormed toward me. "Victoria, stop," I said quietly, but she wasn't listening. She lunged forward, hands outstretched, aiming at my face, ready to scratch. The room went silent as her hands came at me, but before they could reach their target, 2 security officers rushed over and grabbed her, pulling her away. "No! Let me go!" she screamed, struggling in their grip. "You can't do this!" They held her back, and I could hear her shouting as they escorted her out of the courtroom. "You're ruining my life!" The officers restrained her with calm but firm hands, arresting her for disturbing the peace. The scene had erupted in chaos for a moment, but now, the room settled back into its quiet emptiness. I didn't say anything as I watched her taken away, just stood there, feeling the weight of everything finally closing in. It was over. A month has passed. The sky was gray, mist hanging low over the hills. A small car pulled up near the stone wall of an old monastery. Victoria stepped out alone, dressed in black. No luggage, no bags, just herself. A nun opened the wooden gate and gave her a soft, understanding nod. I didn't look back at my past. I wasn't going to waste another second on what was gone. I left the courthouse, got in my car, and drove to my date. It was my time now, finally.